Chapter 1. Meeting under... The workday at a large Manhattan marketing firm was almost over. Many employees had already packed their things, preparing to leave, but for Tess Daniels, the moment of rest had not yet arrived. She was sitting at her absorbed in yet another report, when Jacob knocked at his door. "Tess, are you still here?" His voice was calm, a slight hint of surprise. He was a senior manager with whom Tess had been working for the past few months, and although their collaboration was fictional, there had long been a sense of something more between them. Tess looked up, dark eyes. He always looked as if he could decipher her thoughts, and it made her strangely uneasy. Their relationship had never gone beyond a strict work ethic, but sometimes she felt like he knew more about her feelings than she did. "I'm not done yet. How are you?" She tried to keep her voice neutral, but his presence always made her nervous. Her gaze over his figure. The perfect fit of his suit, great casualness in his posture, created something attractive and unattainable about him. He came closer, leaning against her desk. "It's okay. You and I don't often cross paths after work," a slight, barely noticeable challenge in him. Jacob was not only her colleague, but also a person whose confidence and nation attracted her attention. Tess felt how his words somehow touched her, only nodded, hoping that her face knew what was going on in her chest. Her heart faster, and her breathing became a little heavy. "You know that we have strict work." Tess noticed that her voice had become a little shaky. He smiled. His smile was warm, but there was serious about it, and it made her wonder what was hidden behind his appearance. "I know, Tess, fun to break the rules a little sometimes." His words carried a hint that Tess couldn't help but notice. She felt her begin to tremble, as if her entire world had suddenly shifted axis. The conversation was not casual. He knew that she felt an attraction to him. And although they both did it, the attraction was obvious. They were both adults, and even if the feelings were inappropriate in an office environment, it still couldn't be ignored. "You're scaring me, Jacob," she said, feeling her face flush with excitement. He took another step closer, his gaze so close on her face. "It's not my goal to scare you, Tess." His voice was a hint of something deeper in it. "I just want you to know that sometimes labyrinth of feelings." That evening in the office, Tess couldn't stop thinking about Jacob. Every time she closed her eyes, his dark eyes and enigmatic smile appeared before her mind's eye. She tried to maintain her professional distance, but every look, every word made her heart beat faster. But thoughts became like an invisible that followed everywhere. A few days later, Tess ran into him in the hall. He was standing by the window, looking thoughtfully at the city. As she came closer, he turned and met. He was wearing a usual formal suit, but his face was relaxed, as if he was ready for something more than just work. "Tess?" His voice was soft, almost casual. There was something that made her heart skip a beat. "Hello, Jacob." She tried to speak calmly, but her voice sounded emotions the better of her. "What are you doing here?" He took a step forward slightly. He wanted to say something, but stopped at the last. Tess felt the tension between them growing with a second. "I was thinking about things personal," his eyes remaining glued to her face. "Have you ever considered how hard it is who can destroy all your principles and tear yourself away?" Tess, feeling her skin grow slightly hot at his words. He knew how she felt, and he didn't seem to be trying that his thoughts were increasingly occupied with her too. "You know about, don't you?" Not looking away. There was a slight mockery in his voice, but she felt an underlying threat in it, a threat to her normal state. He was too close, too captivatingly present. Tess took a step back, trying to regain control. "Jacob, we need to think about the consequences. We both dangerous, not just for us, but for the whole company." He chuckled, but there was a fire in his eyes that made her heart beat faster again. "Oh, I don't, but what a moment, knowing what it feels." Chapter 3. Secret Feelings. A few days after the walk in the park, Dasha decided to show Nikolai her drawings. They were simple sketches, landscapes, details from everyday life, portraits. But for her, they were something special. because through them she could express what she could not always say in words. She invited him to her home, asking him to come by before her parents returned from work. Nikolai did not hesitate, although he looked a little awkward. He sat opposite her, and everything was so unusual that Dasha felt awkward. "You didn't think I was drawing, did you?" she joked, trying to lighten the mood. Nikolai glanced at her work and his face changed a little. He was no longer the silent and withdrawn guy he had been before. He was interested, attentive. "It's amazing, Dasha. You draw very..." He hesitated, searching for words. "Really, I see your soul in these drawings, as if they reflect your inner state." Her heart sank at these words. She had not expected such a compliment. This was not just another empty comment that she had received before from teachers or friends. This was a look that saw her real self, as she was. "Thank you," she answered quietly, feeling her cheeks begin to burn, but Nikolai did not immediately continue the conversation. He was thoughtful. Then, as if having decided something for himself, he looked at her with some new understanding. "Have you ever thought that all this could be something more than just drawings?" he asked. Dasha bit her lip, not understanding what he meant. "Like something more?" Her voice trembled. He did not answer right away, but his eyes did not leave hers. A quiet look full of mystery and depth. "Maybe you and I are more than just classmates. Maybe everything that happens between us is not a coincidence. Have you ever thought that there is more between people than just a meeting?" he said, and there was something in his voice that made Dasha feel her heart begin to beat wildly. Chapter 4. Crossroads of Fate. Dasha felt her chest tighten and her heart beat faster. Everything that was happening between her and Nikolai was too confusing and strange. She couldn't understand what exactly he meant, but she felt that there was something more than just interest hidden in these words. This was not just a conversation, but a question that changed everything. She tilted her head, trying to collect her thoughts, but instead of an answer, something sharp flared in her chest, as if all the feelings that she had been trying to suppress until now suddenly burst out. The silence stretched. Nikolai noticed her confusion. He rubbed his neck, but did not look away. He was firm in his words, as if he was looking for some kind of answer in her reaction, waiting for something specific that she could not give him. "You don't understand, do you?" he said, a little sarcastically, but with the corners of his lips twitching. "I didn't mean just drawings. I was talking about how there's more between us than just the casual conversations we have or the glances we exchange. You feel that too, don't you?" Dasha felt her inner tension growing. She didn't know how to respond, but one thing was clear. These words had thrown her off balance. Images began to pop into her head. His look when he said she drew for real. The moments when they walked together, when she felt there was something she couldn't understand and that she didn't want to lose. But there was fear in her soul. This fear wasn't new. It had been sitting deep, like a stone, since the very moment she realized that she might be falling in love with him. But what if her feelings were wrong? What if this was just a fantasy? Nikolai was a stranger. He was new with his world that was distant and alien to her, and she didn't know if she was ready to accept it. "I don't know what you mean, Nikolai." Dasha squeezed the words out of herself, feeling her voice breaking. "You mean that you and I mean something to each other? I can't understand what you want from me." There was desperation in her voice that she didn't try to hide. Nikolai looked at her again, as if he was searching for some kind of clue in her eyes, but a shadow of irritation appeared on his face. "Are you always like this?" His tone became sharp as a knife. "Are you always afraid to take a step forward? Can't you at least be honest with yourself? We both feel that there is something, and you are still not ready to admit it." His words were like a cold blow. Dasha immediately felt something crumbling inside her. All her caution and doubt suddenly became more acute, as if she was standing on the edge of a precipice and could not understand whether she wanted to jump or stay put. "I don't know what you want from me," she blurted out, losing control of herself. "I can't just take and believe what you say. You change your mind too quickly, Nikolai. You want me to believe it, but I'm not ready." He stood up abruptly, and her words seemed to pierce him to the very heart. He turned to the window. There was some kind of alienation in his back that Dasha immediately felt. "You know, you're right. I really am changing my mind." His voice became cold and distant. "Maybe I'm getting into your life too quickly. Maybe you really aren't ready for this." Silence filled the room like a thick fog. Everything became so strange and alien, as if what connected them had suddenly turned into something painful and heavy. "I just don't want you to disappoint me," she said, her voice sounding weak, which she couldn't hide. Nikolai was silent for a long time, not answering. He stood by the window, and Dasha could only see how his shoulders tensed, as if he was trying to suppress something inside himself. "Disappoint?" His words were quiet but pierced with pain. "Do you think that I want to disappoint you, Dasha? Are you serious? I don't want anything from you at all. I just want to be close. I just want you to understand that we are not random people in each other's lives. But you don't want that. You're afraid." She lowered her head, not knowing how to answer. These words were spinning in her head, but they did not form a clear picture. Nikolai was there, but his words now felt like a chasm, as if there was a wall between them that couldn't be broken down. "Maybe you're right," she said finally, giving in to this incomprehensible storm. "But I don't know what to do with it. I'm not ready to be so vulnerable." Nikolai turned to her, and there was something dark in his eyes, something she couldn't understand. "You'll never be ready, and you know what? Maybe I should leave." His words were like the final touch. He turned around, and Dasha realized that this was no longer just a misunderstanding. This was a real threat to their connection, and perhaps this was the end. Chapter 5. Parting and Understanding. A few days passed, but Dasha still couldn't find the strength to talk to Nikolai. Their silence began to weigh on her like a brick on her chest. He didn't write to her, didn't call. She couldn't bring herself to make the first move either. The fear that their conversation was the end was too strong, but she still decided that she had to talk. She met him in the school corridor, and although his gaze was cold and distant, she still decided. "Nikolai, wait," she said when he started to walk past. He stopped but didn't look at her. "I know what you want to say," he said. "You just don't want to admit that there could be something more between us." Dasha looked at him, and although her heart was sinking, she was ready to hear what he would say. "Maybe we were wrong, but I can't go on like this any longer. We are both not ready, and maybe this is not the time to start something serious." She tried to speak calmly, but the words sounded as if her soul was being torn apart. "But I still hope that someday you will understand that I could not have done this before." Nikolai was silent for a while, and then his face softened a little. "I know, Dasha. I know that it is difficult for you, and for me too. But I believe that one day you and I will find a way. You will feel it." He left, and her world became empty and foggy again. But this time she knew that their story was not over. Chapter 6. Shadows of the Past. Dasha couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness that Nikolai had left behind. She returned home, and although her life went on as usual on the outside, inside she felt that something important had been destroyed. She sat at the table rereading her old notes and drawings, which seemed to have lost all meaning. Previously, her drawings had been a way to understand the world around her, but now every stroke was a reminder of what she could not control. She closed the notebook and looked out the window. Autumn continued its march, and although the leaves were still falling from the trees, everything around her seemed different to her. The world was indifferent, and her place in it had become uncertain. She searched for answers, but all the roads she took led to nowhere. It was no easier at school. Nikolai disappeared from her life like a shadow dissolving in the darkness. He did not show up for classes, did not answer messages, and it seemed as if he simply did not exist. Dasha decided not to insist on meetings. It was too painful to look for him when all she got in response was silence. But it was this silence that became her torment. And then, one day, when she could no longer bear this loneliness, she heard his voice. He was standing by her window, as if nothing had happened. "Are you still here?" he asked, bowing his head, and in his eyes a strange mixture of determination and doubt could be read. Dasha froze. Her heart sank again, and all the feelings she had tried to suppress returned like a storm. She took a step back. "Why didn't you come earlier?" she blurted out. "Why did you disappear when you needed me so much?" Nikolai did not answer right away. He simply looked at her, as if trying to understand what exactly she wanted from him. He noticed her confusion, her desire to understand what had happened. "I didn't know how to approach you. I didn't know what you needed, Dasha. I tried to find the words so as not to hurt you, but I was wrong. I just couldn't leave without telling you that you meant more to me than just a classmate. I was stupid, trying to keep everything inside." Dasha didn't know what to say. She felt the tears welling up in her eyes again, and she held them back immediately. This moment was too painful to let go. "You can't just come back, Nikolai. You can't disappear and then reappear and think that everything will be the same," she said, her voice as sharp as a knife. "You said that we were not accidental for each other, but you left me alone when I was having a hard time. Why did you do that? Nikolai looked at her, and something in his gaze changed. He took a step forward, but she stepped back, as if afraid that his approach would destroy her again. I was a coward, Dasha. I was afraid you would let me go, so I left first. So it wouldn't hurt. I didn't think it would be so hard for you without me. I thought you could do without it. Dasha felt her heart squeeze heavily at these words. She couldn't figure out what to do with this confession. Why hadn't he said all this before? Why had it taken him so long to understand his feelings? I can't just forget, Nikolai. You ruined everything that was between us. How can I trust you again? How can I believe that you'll stay again? Her voice began to tremble. He didn't answer, but there was such pain in his eyes that she felt like this wall she had built was starting to crumble. He was there, and something in his gaze, in his sincerity, made her doubt her beliefs. I'm not asking you for forgiveness, Dasha. I'm only asking for a chance. One chance to prove to you that I can be there without leaving, without betraying. I don't know how it will be, but I don't want you to lose me. And if I do, it will be my mistake. But I'm ready to do anything to regain your trust. Dasha felt her inner world begin to turn over. Her heart was tossing between anger and pity, between love and disappointment. Everything was too complicated, and she didn't know if she was ready to return to this world that had collapsed so quickly. I don't know what to do, she whispered, almost unaware of what she was saying. I'm so afraid of feeling you leave again. I can't go through that again. Nikolai came even closer, his voice softer. Then just be with me, Dasha. Accept me as I am, with my mistakes and my fears. We can try again, and if it doesn't work out, at least try not to regret what we didn't do. You won't be alone. She stood in front of him, unsure of what to do. She had to understand that her feelings couldn't just be ignored. She couldn't be with him out of fear, but she couldn't leave him either because he was a part of her life. Maybe they both needed each other more than they could admit. I don't promise that everything will be easy. Her voice became more determined. But if you're ready to be there, I'll try too. Nikolai finally came closer to her and carefully took her hand. He didn't say anything. Chapter 7. A New Step. After they found each other again, every day was like a new step into an unknown world. They no longer tried to avoid their own feelings. Their relationship had become complex and multi-layered, but now they were learning to be honest, learning not to hide their weaknesses. However, every step was difficult. Every look, every word they exchanged required effort. They could not simply forget about everything that had happened before, but their feelings, despite all the obstacles, did not disappear. And this was the most important thing. School, exams, weekdays, all this became less significant than before. Now only one thing was important: to be next to each other, despite fears and mistakes.